Welcome to the Sheer Growth podcast. My name is James Sheerin, and on today's episode, we have Joe Goetz. He is going to tell us about his business, the unique proposition they have, and the growth of the business, where it's going in 2026. Over to you, Joe.
For you. My name is Joe Goetz. I'm the president and founder of Winning Strategy Group. We are a marketing and fundraising agency that specializes in helping our clients that are right of center, conservative, Republican, achieve their marketing and fundraising goals.
I'm really intrigued to know how many political parties there are out there that you could potentially work with.
In the United States, we're really a two-party system for the most part. So most of my
Yeah.
clients fall within the Republican Party space. I do work with a few clients who are more libertarian. So that would be one of the much smaller third parties. A lot of my clients are, technically speaking, C3s or C4s, nonprofit organizations, although their policies and ideologies lean right. They're not partisan by nature. We would consider them more right of center or conservative organizations, programs they work on.
Okay, that's great. And how did you get into this space?
I've always been political by nature. It's always been something that had interested me even from a young age. I was in fifth grade when 9/11 happened. And as a New Yorker, I think it impacted me even more. Again, very young, so I wasn't ready to serve in the military. I saw a lot of friends of mine whose family members were either in Manhattan at the time or were firefighters. So I think that there was a natural patriotism that I was brought up in. My parents are small business owners and they own a restaurant in New York. So just the natural free market financial part of the political scene and looking at how taxes impact small businesses or medium-sized businesses was also something that I think was just ingrained in me from a young age. My parents are not Republicans, so it's not like that was a parental guidance. It was something I generally came through on my own. But generally speaking, I was always political. And then when I had the opportunity in college, I was able to work on a few political campaigns. And then after graduating, I just generally fell back and moved down to DC and just role after role, kept building things up. The direct marketing part of it, I always say nobody really was a little kid and said, oh, I really want to do direct mail or I really want to do digital fundraising like they would a firefighter or an astronaut. But I do believe when you find something you're good at, it tends to find you and find yourself in opportunities to kind of grow that. And that's where I've been lucky to find those opportunities that I've been able to really flex my skills in the marketing and fundraising space.
What does a typical week look like for you?
Typical week is a little difficult to say just because having a number of clients on the agency side, every week can look a little different. A lot of weekly meetings with clients, direct marketing and fundraising, specifically when you're talking about things like digital fundraising or direct mail. They move fast, but they're somewhat cyclical, like the review process. It's not necessarily like 6 months, like a big corporation's ad campaign would be to launch something. They're month or 2 month projects and they're kind of ongoing. Typically, I have meetings with my clients to go over action items, open-ended new business items that we have to look at, a review of copy and creative that either their internal teams are putting out or my team or my subcontractors have put out for them. And then really just managing some of their vendors, managing some of their results, looking at results of them. So a big part of what my agency does right now with a considerable amount of our clients is actually coaches them and their development teams to be better fundraisers and marketers. I somewhat joke to some of my clients that if I do my job correctly, then my contracts will probably renew in the next year because I want to train their team to do the best that they can do. Now, luckily, I think most of them are hopefully going to keep me on long term, just in general, because of the tangible work I do. A lot of the work I do in the coaching space for them is to just show them the ropes. A lot of organizations, especially smaller nonprofits in our side of the business and political advocacy work, they don't have large budgets to hire the top fundraisers out there. They tend to have to hire some really passionate and really, really hardworking individuals who just need to learn on the job. Kind of on the job experience is not something that is usually taught in college or something you can just pick up unless you're doing it. So I like to be able to work with these organizations to help their staff see different perspectives and improve their programs and hopefully raise more money or get more impressions, whatever the goal is.
And for those unaware of direct marketing and the effects of direct marketing, what are the key techniques that you use within your industry that are highly effective?
I think direct marketing in my industry, I think people tend to overthink it just a little bit. I always try to, and saying dumb it down is not the appropriate term, but for lack of better phrasing, every business, every industry uses direct marketing in some way. My family owns a restaurant in New York. I remember my dad having us proofread penny saver ads in coupon books. That's a form of direct marketing. Realtors, they're sending out mail, they're sending emails. That's direct marketing. So in the political and advocacy space, it's all the same concepts, just with the goal of either trying to raise money for your organization, or maybe in the political campaigning side, trying to influence or persuade people to vote for your candidate. Part of it is also just name ID. A lot of political campaigns use direct marketing just to get their candidate's bio in front of more eyes. So there's a lot of facets of direct marketing and direct fundraising. The important tenets remain the same across all industries. You need to have, in my opinion, a foundation of good data. If you send out a direct mail letter and you have people's addresses that are not matched up to the right name, I mean, we all go to the mailbox and sometimes we get mail from somebody who doesn't live there anymore, or is potentially, in some cases, it's a parent or grandparent who's deceased. That starts with data. So good data hygiene, direct marketing is usually the best foundation for healthy and optimized programs. You also have to have an eye for creative. You need to know how to move hearts and shape minds. The best data out there, if you're sending out, let's say, a direct mail piece and the envelope doesn't catch somebody's eye, you won't get that envelope opened. So it doesn't matter how good your data is at that point. There's just traditional marketing trends that still flow down to the direct marketing piece of it. I think that's where really organizations succeed or fail if they don't have the basics down.
I think you said something really good there where it's appealing to hearts and minds. So having a good messaging, having good copy alongside the actual method is imperative when it comes to direct marketing. What trends are you seeing in your space from a marketing perspective?
Well, I think this year, we're almost at the end of this year. It's Q4, which in fundraising is giving season. So results start to push forward and spend a lot of money in this space to try to kind of get their last donors to give before the end of the year. Some of the trends I'm looking forward to towards next year is I think AI is going to continue to be a big part of not necessarily creating, and when I say AI, I'm not talking necessarily about generative AI. I think that still has a long way to go, especially in creative. I'm a fan of it. I'm a supporter of using AI, but using AI effectively and ethically. Where I see AI really taking even a bigger step forward in my space, and I'm sure a lot of marketers will say that, is in how organizations can efficiently look at data and actually then synthesize a lot more data points into messaging strategies. So one thing, I've talked to a few different agencies and contractors who've started companies that use AI chatbots to help them in their fundraising via text messaging. So P2P text messaging, where they'll send out an initial P2P text message and then an AI bot will help respond and talk to things. Now, I am not a big fan of using fundraising or using AI to have conversations with your donors. I don't think that's authentic. And I really believe in authentic
Yeah.
donor stewardship. But where I do see some of those trends, whether it be in texting or how people look at data, is for mass marketing events. If you have members or donors going to your events or campaign rally or trying to find out your voting place, traditionally you have people call into your campaign, your organization's office to find out more information. In this way, you can put prompts into, this is just one example, you can put prompts into a software or an AI agent. Depending on what's being asked, all the information for your event or the voting details or really the voting map can be easily sent out to your voters or your constituents. And then your staff can focus on other things like making sure the media plan is in place, the candidate's where he or she needs to be. I think AI is going to make things a little bit more efficient from a staffing perspective for organizations. And then as we look at actual fundraising or marketing, using things like dynamic creative optimization, using AI to basically say, we know all of this stuff about person A or person B. Maybe they need to be treated differently. And one person responds to, and I'm just going to, again, just use a very top level thing. One person responds to a donate button that's in red. The other one responds better to a donate button that's in green.
Yeah.
Typically, we can do A/B testing with human touch. But now that we have all of this data, we're able to put this into some programs, whether it be AI, machine learning, whatever buzzword we want to call it. And they can actually make those decisions on the buying platform, if it's digital or programmatic, in mail. You can put people into different models and segments like that. So I think it's just going to make, in 2026, I think we're going to see much more efficient organizations if they're using AI and some of these systems correctly. If not, we may see a lot of organizations use them incorrectly. And I think that those organizations are probably going to have, I'm not saying they're going to raise less money, but I think that the lifetime value of those donors or the long-term value of those marketing impressions are going to be cut short dramatically.
What are you using AI for in your organization, and how is AI affecting client expectations when it comes to campaigns?
So my agency specifically, we use certain program, even Zoom meetings with clients. I can use their AI, built-in AI companion that helps not only record the meetings, but provides the recipient, if they choose to, with detailed notes of what was talked about. I'm a serial note taker, pen and paper usually. Now I've moved into an e-tablet because if you leave your notebook on a plane once, you'll never forgive yourself. So now I have it go up to the cloud. The ability to use AI just from a business standpoint, even my QuickBooks software now has an AI tool where it can recognize income or expenses and match it differently. So and again, that's very surface level. Everything has an AI feature now for the most part, Google Gemini, everything we're doing. In terms of the day to day, being able to take a copy that a client has written and pump it through a chat GPT to find out better ways to remove some of the syntax errors or the spelling mistakes or grammar. It's not perfect. You still need to read through everything. If any of my clients are watching this, I promise you, me and my staff are still reading all of your materials, but it does make it so that it highlights things, for a little bit sooner. It makes sure that anything that is said in terms of fact has a correct citation. It can actually look up the citations for us. So there's elements there to make my business more efficient. In terms of what the client's expectations are, I have a number of clients who keep wanting more and more AI. Oh, we want more images out there. Let's make our social media more efficient, or let's put out more. What does AI tell us about our donor base or our data? That's all fine. There are tools out there that'll do that. I think the problem, and not necessarily any specific clients or even any specific industry, again, goes back to, are we rushing through AI? How are we implementing it, and who is implementing it? Next month, I'm speaking on a webinar through the Direct Marketing Association of Washington, D.C. to young professionals specifically about this, because it's organizations, specifically nonprofits. They'll say, we need more AI, but then they're still going to make their junior staff print out every piece of direct mail copy because they like to mark it up with a pen and paper. Both of those situations are fine, but you can't be on the forefront of technology and not be willing to let AI do some editing for our copy first. So organizations are going to need to invest in AI, both financially, but also from a buy-in perspective to implement it correctly. It can't just be corporate speak anymore. It can't be nonprofits replacing staff with AI. That's just not authentic. And it's also just not going to be good for the survival of the organizations. What needs to be done is really tactful and strategic implementation of AI, not just for the sake of it because donors or your board of directors wants to use more AI. It has to actually be done that's going to help not only the organization move forward, but also the staff do their jobs more efficiently, because the more staff hours you can free up for meaningful work, the better and more efficient your staff is going to be.
Made some interesting points there. First of all, in your organization, talking about how AI has helped with efficiency and operationally. But then on the flip side, with AI not replacing people within your clients, where I think it's really important from a political standpoint, that voice is a human voice and it's touching the donors in the right way, but also utilizing AI to do a lot of the positioning and coming up with the ideas and the strategies. I think it opens up a world of opportunity, which could add a lot of layers to those campaigns. So, if we talk about your organization again and what's working well for you right now, but also what are the challenges that you're facing at the moment?
The challenges I think a lot of businesses are facing right now, including my own. We started at the beginning of this year. I'm still staff one of one, even though I use a lot of really good independent contractors and subcontractors for different projects, is finding talent in the economy we're in right now, where I think that there's a lot of people looking for work. The expectations salary wise, and again, being very candid here, is the expectations salary wise are not necessarily matching an increase of what businesses are willing to pay for services. This is not coming from a greed factor, and this is not coming from a P&L perspective specifically, but if you want to hire in this economy, you still need to be able to provide a premium and benefits and all these other things to your W-2 staff or even your part-time staff. You can't just manufacture new contracts with clients. So I've worked previously to my agency, I've worked for organizations that will not hire until the business is in the door. I've worked for organizations that hire with anticipation of new clients coming in. Both have their pros and both have their cons,
Yeah.
especially from the employee side of things. I've worked for places like the former, I've worked for places that you end up doing two people's jobs until the work comes in and then you finally get somebody to hire and train. It's not great, but it's fine. The other aspect is you have a really top heavy organization that's got a lot of staff. The work maybe doesn't come in the same way, or the work does come in, especially with campaigns. This happens a lot in the political campaign space, is agencies hire up really quickly for the campaign cycle and then have to lay off a number of their staff, if not the majority, because the campaign season ends and things all of a sudden slow down. So I try to find myself in a place where I don't have to do either. Right now, that means a lot of hours for me, myself working, which is fine. As I look to find growth in my business, it's going to come from having really good client partners that are making long-term investments in what I do with them, but then also in the same time, passing that long-term trust that a client gives me and passing that into potentially some long-term employees that I can hire and not need to let go at the end of the year because a couple of client works come in. Anecdotally, and I keep bringing this back to this point, so maybe this means a little bit more in my life than I thought that I think it does. But my father has owned a restaurant for 45 years. He's got employees there that still work for him that have been working there with him from the beginning, more or less. Some of them maybe for 30 years. These are people who were, you know, invited to my wedding and invited to my brother's wedding more recently and my bar mitzvah back when I was 13. These are people I grew up with. I take that same responsibility. These guys could have left. I mean, it's a restaurant job, so there's a lot of restaurants out there that I could pay up. But the loyalty I saw my parents give their employees and the support they gave their employees probably translate into a little bit how I adapt my business. So maybe that has provided me a little bit more of a pause before I hire too many people because I expect a lot from them, but I also don't want to put myself or them in a position where something doesn't work out and that's my responsibility and then I have to let them go. So I think as I look forward to growing this agency, and we're probably coming up on that point pretty soon, I don't know if I can handle the 70 hours a week by myself much longer. I have a 17-month-old. I have another one coming in January. So again, 70 hours is 70 hours until it's 70 hours plus a newborn and a toddler. So to be able to put that trust in employees is something I'm looking forward to in the next stage of my business's growth.
Well, you answered part of my next question, which is going into 2026, what are your goal ambitions? I think you've mentioned one about building a team. Is there any other growth goals that you would like to achieve in the next 6 to 12 months?
In the next 6 to 12 months, I really want to continue doing that good work for my clients, my agency. I mean, I've run other agencies before. I've worked at agencies. I've been on the client side as well over the last 15 years. Starting my agency in January, the growth, being able to bring on the clients I've been able to bring on and the quality of the clients and the relationships has been a blessing. I can't say anything even remotely negative, not never about my clients, but about the process, even though there's been stressful times and things like that. I've been truly blessed in that respect. Next year, some of these 12-month contracts are going to come up for renewal. My goal is to ensure I'm doing enough good work now and into early next year where we can renew these contracts and bring on more business, of course. I believe that retention, and this kind of goes partly into the fundraising and marketing space, partly into running a business, is I think it's a lot more important to retain the current roster you have, whether that's clients or donors, followers or advocates, than it is to bring in new ones. It's usually a little bit cheaper to do that instead of having to then go do a ton of business development work. So my focus is about the clients that have already put their trust in me, and I can continue to do that good work for next year. And of course, I think every business owner has the dream of in the next 6 to 12 months doubling their roster and building a team. But I just want to continue to have my clients have the faith. I've seen a lot of agencies try to get too big too quick and they start to lose sight of what's important. And like I mentioned, I got a newborn coming in January. I have a little daughter, is 18 months. I don't love the term work-life balance. I don't believe in that. I think work is part of life. So you have to just find general balance in your life, but just continue to do that. Be a good dad, be a good consultant, contractor for my client.
I think you said some really interesting points there, which stood out to me. The first one was the retention piece. I think a lot of agencies think about getting the next shiny new thing or servicing new people, but actually, the easiest way to retain the business and grow the business is by keeping what you've got, looking after what you've got, and building upon that and growing on that. And the second thing that you mentioned was that work-life balance. Your life is to amalgamate all different types of responsibilities, whether that be your family life, your work life, whether you're working for somebody or working for yourself, that still is present. So I think that was a really interesting piece as well. And in terms of the important metrics that you're focused on improving right now, what would you say they are? I know you started at the start of this year and you've had a good run until now. You've probably gathered a lot of data and insight from that period. What do you think you're most focused on improving for the remainder of the year going into 2026?
I like budgeting. I budget in my personal life. I budget in every organization I've been in. I think when you're starting a business, a lot of business owners or partners, they just forget that like you have to, I mean, first of all, there's the first 6 months, forget about making a profit unless you've got a really good business. It's not necessarily all about the P&L. I'm a firm believer in that this is a long-term growth opportunity for me and the business, but figuring out a way to forecast a little bit better for 2026, that goes both ways. The first 6 months of the year, my expenses were a lot more than I thought they were. Only just you got flight cancellations, you got to move your thing. There's just the incidentals that come up. And if you're really strict with your budget, it makes it look like you've just completely blown it out of the water. At the same time, beginning of the year, I had a few really good clients. I brought on a few even better clients, and not even better than them, but like the first ones, just constant growth. So you could be projecting for X amount of dollars profit for the year, and all of a sudden that number gets blown out of the water. Fantastic. I will never turn my nose at more profit. However, that comes with more expenses in terms of the taxes you have to pay as a business owner. What can I even pay myself W-2 versus a distribution? This may be getting a little nitty gritty, but I think your audience is probably a lot of folks that'll understand this. You need to be able to pace your business and some of those expenses throughout the year for that, or you get killed at the end of the year with taxes, or you've got this amount of money and you want to just also be able to invest that money the right way into your business. I try not to all of a sudden have a big windfall at the end of the year of a bunch of invoices getting paid. Probably
Yeah.
unavoidable. A lot of business owners will probably see that. So I just want to get better at, you know, understanding my own business a little bit better. And that just comes with time. The other part is building out better contracts and making sure, luckily, I've hired a good attorney and a good accountant to help me through this process. The more I understand my business and the services that I'm able to offer and the outside partnerships I have with other agencies that I can either white label or do some different work with, I think help inform smarter business decisions and smarter offerings. The goal is if it doesn't come to fruition, then I'm not doing it right. That it helps bring in some more business, but also with my current clients, actually helps them get a little bit more for a little bit less, or even just get a service that they didn't know I offered, and they can make things a little bit more streamlined on their end as well.
Really appreciate you sharing that. And my final question is, as an agency owner, what would be your top tip for other agencies owners that are approaching the end of their first year in business?
It's hard to say. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. If I'm giving advice to folks that are just starting their business and I'm coming on
Mhm.
the end of my first year, I would say appreciate the process. It's not going to be easy. In fact, most of the time it feels really hard. You know, your clients, depending on what field you're in, there's some businesses that work for corporations who are nameless, faceless, but I'm lucky enough in my space where a lot of my organizations that I work with have some really great people. Try to be part of that team. I'm not saying you should all of a sudden have a domain that has your client have 8 inboxes and you're actually part of the team. The more you can really feel like you're in that inner circle, or at least with the ability to talk to your clients like you're part of that team, not only is that relationship going to be much longer and hopefully much better long term, but you're going to get to see more about the inner workings of your clients. You're going to understand your clients more, and it's going to inform your work a lot better. The beauty of a lot of the relationships I have with my clients is that they really do consider me part of their team. Whether I hire subcontractors or help manage vendors for them, I'm on their side of the red velvet rope and everybody else is on the other side. I can always advise them to bring people into our circle, but being really kind of building a relationship with not just synergy, like you are the client at the same time, makes it a lot easier to do my job, especially when you're talking about fundraising and marketing. It's so emotionally driven. Yes, there's KPIs, psychology to it. At the end of the day, if you're trying to develop campaigns to get people to donate to an organization, you really do need to live and breathe that organization's mission statement. And you got to basically live in their About Us page on their website. You really need to know everything about it from the top down, because you can't do that effectively if you don't live the client's mission. I would say the only other thing is for people who are in, just keep going. I think people would surprise themselves. I know I surprised myself this year as I started my business. I knew I had a couple of good clients coming in from the beginning. It's a big reason I started my business. I had a lot of interest. I've been to a few conferences and I've gotten a little bit of business here and there, and it's been tremendous. Had a lot of great conversations, but the ability to trust in yourself and believe in yourself. Luckily, I've been in positions previous to this where people knew kind of what work I did, the high ethics that I hold, and that I, you know, can produce for them. Just be a good guy. There's a lot of agencies out there who do the right things, but I don't know if they do it fully for the right reasons. And this is not even just in my industry. It's just kind of across the board. I've heard plenty of friends that work in big marketing agencies in Manhattan that all of a sudden their staff is revolting and they're laying off 30-40% of their staff because they want to implement AI, going back to the beginning of the conversation. So that's recently. Just do the right thing with your clients. If a client misses an invoice, I'm not saying don't apply the late fees, but give everybody grace, especially in the small nonprofits or smaller clients. Sometimes they have an intern looking at it, like just give people the benefit of the doubt. If you do that for your clients or your prospects, I think they do that for you, because people will make mistakes. I will make mistakes with my clients. My clients will make mistakes. I think it's just giving grace to yourself and to everybody else.
Yeah, I think there's some really good nuggets of advice there. Just being a normal person
Yeah.
and having a why and why you're doing this. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And finally, where can people find out about you and your organization and your agency online and on socials?
Yes, the agency is the Winning Strategy Group. The website is www.winningsg.com. We're also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, all the things that are out there for the most part, not TikTok or anything like that. The website is usually the easiest place to find us and get to know a little bit more about Winning Strategy Group and what we do.
Fantastic. Just out of interest, what was your family restaurant in New York? I'm quite intrigued.
It's the LIDO Kosher Deli in Long Beach, New York. The store itself has been there the better part of a century. My dad's been running it for about 45 years. We don't really know how long he's been there, but he's been there a long time. So it's now my little brother is getting into has been working in the business. He and I are technically fourth generation. My great grandfather started a kosher butcher shop in the Bronx in the 30s. So yeah, that's a Lido Kosher Deli. So now they get a little bit of a plug too. I'll take it.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Well, that was great. Thank you for sharing these insights, Joe. And if you've enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you again at the next episode. Thank you for watching.